Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I'll talk about Amy Schumer's movie in the second half. Let's start with Joe Rogan. There's been some back and forth on what went down or didn't go down with Kamala Harris not appearing on Rogan's podcast. I had mentioned the other day about a book. And according to Rogan, those books' authors never reached out to Rogan for his side of the story. Joe said they supposedly talked to 150 people about this, but they didn't talk to us. That's kind of crazy. Joe explained his version of what went down. Here's a lengthy clip. I have made some edits to it for pacing. It's a 5-minute clip that I've cut down for F-bombs. I try and avoid those on this program. And the guest stepped on Joe Rogan a few times as Joe spoke. But let's listen to Joe.
This is how it worked. Trump was really easy to book, like super easy. We offered one day. He said yes. That was it. There was no, what are we going to talk about? How long is it going to be? Is it going to be edited? There was nothing. Yeah. What's the waiver? Here, give me that waiver. Sign it. It was so easy. So he was already booked. They never committed to doing the show. So all this talk, there was another thing they said that the reason why they did the Beyonce thing, the Beyonce event in Houston, was so that they could be in Texas to do my show. They never agreed to do the show. None of that's true. This is really important. Even after Trump went on, they offered for me to come to D.C. and do a show with Kamala. But even then, it was the same deal. It was only like 45 minutes to an hour. And, you know, it was not on my set. And I said that, look, he did it here. We should probably do it here. Like, if it's possible to do it here. Obviously, when he did it, it had an enormous result. I'm willing to do the same thing for her. I wanted to release both of them on the same day. This was my goal. I was even trying to figure out if there was a way that I could do it. And I even offered to do it late that night. So the night that Trump came on, I'm like, what if we do her, like when she's done in Texas, if she came here? But no one ever committed to doing it. This is like really important because they keep pretending that I lied or I did this or I did that. They never committed to doing it. Well, we went through, I've got a whole, we have all the receipts, by the way.
Of course.
I have a whole list of conversations that took place. They never said she was going to do it. But I think it's someone trying to cover their ass for the fact that she never did it. And if she did do it, it might have had a positive effect.
Nate Bargatze is doing a cruise with fans next year. It's called Nateland at Sea. It'll sail from Tampa to Costa Maya, Mexico from February 5th through the 9th, so 1 year away. It will feature, quote, a slew of comedians along with live music and even magic performed by Nate's dad. Pre-sale tickets for the cruise are February 9th and February 16th. The public sale begins February 19th. The comedians include John Crist, Dusty Slay, and Derek Stroop. There will also be a Southern Spelling Bee and a belly flop contest. The cruise starts at $12.82 per person based on double occupancy, in case you're curious. The fare includes onboard meals, drinks like regular coffee and non-pressed juices, the comedy shows, and more. We're told to prepare to laugh until your sides hurt as we cruise our way to sunny Mexico. Matt Rief and Paul Elia have announced a new low-key comedy series. It'll premiere on February 16th on Patreon. Low-key sees Matt and Paul act as hosts of a night of comedy, mainly improvising their material. Along the way, they'll introduce a number of other stand-up comedians who will do the same. This one was recorded during the 2024 Netflix is a Joke Festival. Pretty good lineup. Whitney Cummings, Fahim Anwar, Ian Edwards, Lunel, Francisco Ramos, and TJ Miller. The whole thing was directed by Eric Griffin. Carol Liefer is the guest on the Daily Beast Good One podcast. Carol's a name known to us older folks who were around in the 80s. You younger folks probably don't know the name. Some say she was the inspiration for the Elaine character on the Seinfeld sitcom. And the Daily Beast asked her about that, and she said, well, I know Jerry has said that. Look, we have a unique relationship. We dated early on at the beginning of my stand-up career and the beginning of his, and since then, we really only went out for a year or so, but we've stayed very good friends. And I think of them talking about the genius of the show to have the woman on the show who's not only a friend, but someone that Jerry once dated makes for an interesting relationship. So in that regard, I feel like, yeah, maybe I was the inspiration. Sure sounds like it to me. Amber Ruffin will be this year's host of the White House Correspondents Dinner. A spokesperson said Amber's unique talents are the ideal fit for this current political and cultural climate. Her perspective will fit right in with the dinner's tradition of honoring the freedom of the press while roasting the most powerful people on all sides of the aisle and the journalists who cover them. It is unclear if President Trump will make this one. During his first term, he did not attend the dinner at all. There are those that believe that it was a White House Correspondents Dinner many moons ago when President Obama made some jokes about Trump, and it was at that moment Trump decided to run for office himself to get back at everybody. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how the story goes. Late Nighter wrote about Desi Lydic hosting The Daily Show, and I think she should actually be the host. Desi told Late Nighter, I watched John and all the correspondents on the show all through my 20s, and I thought, this is what I want to do. For her character, she says, I like to say I'm overly confident and underinformed. Not that she's not smart, but she didn't do her homework. She explains, when you host, you're a version of yourself. You have to bring a certain amount of authenticity to just throw away the armor of a character. That was the part of the unknown for me. Can I do the job? Just be funny as myself? It makes no sense at all that I would feel comfortable doing this, but for some reason I do. My goal every time I sit at the desk is just to be present, just be in the moment. That's my little mantra before going out there. So far, I've been able to just enjoy every moment of it. Desi explains some advice she got from Jon Stewart. It's not about abandoning your humanity and your empathy. Don't put pressure on yourself to be the resistance, to say the perfect thing, to respond to every story. Just go out there and try to make the funniest and smartest shows you can, and don't abandon your humanity. People ask me how we're going to cover Trump 2.0. I say, we don't even know what we're going to cover tonight. It's so volatile. Stars and Stripes caught up with Jo Koy. He was touring military bases in Guam and Japan. Joe said, when I go out there, I know how much the show means to these people. This is my way of saying thank you to those who serve. I get to be a comic around the world because you guys are making that happen for me. Sometimes people take things for granted. We don't take pride in what we got, and that's the one thing I love about these service members. They're proud of what they do, they're proud of their bases, and they're proud of their people. Each base was like this big, giant show and tell, and they went above and beyond. It was just incredible. You may recall Jo Koy once hosted the Golden Globes and told a joke about Taylor Swift. Jack Whitehall has joined the list of people who say Prince Harry ghosted them after Meghan Markle showed up. The British comedian once considered themselves good friends with Prince Harry when Harry was a bachelor. Jack told an Australian radio show that he wasn't quite in the inner circle, but he had a few wild nights out with Prince Harry. Jack's father, Michael, has previously suggested that Jack's royal exile might have something to do with a joke he made at the 2015 Royal Variety Performance, where he called Harry Ginger Nuts. As I've mentioned from time to time, I'm the writer on the Palace Intrigue podcast. We talk about the British royals 7 days a week, and yeah, we're going to talk about this story, sure. Okay, Amy Schumer wanted us to talk about her, and so we shall. Let's start with the reviews. Stay with me for this whole segment, because I need you to hear my complete thoughts here before you just decide, oh, John just beating up on Amy Schumer. I will start with the Hollywood Reporter, which is an industry trade and generally positive about everything. Their headline, kind of pregnant review, Amy Schumer's Netflix comedy is kind of dull. Most of the headlines did some sort of kinda pun. The Hollywood Reporter writes, there's a version of this story that finds complexity and surprising heart in the concept, but Kinda Pregnant prefers to stay on the surface. That shallowness puts more pressure on the comedy, which is challenging because Kinda Pregnant is not exceptionally funny either. Most of the laughs come from the supporting characters, and for all its good intentions, the movie is so formulaic that it verges on dull. We know that Lainey will eventually be found out, but the narrative struggles to keep us curious, and the direction can't recoup the lost momentum. The result is a film that not only seems unsure of its purpose, but loses steam before it ever really gets going. LeisureBite.com, their headline, Kinda Pregnant review, less comedy, more secondhand embarrassment. They write, with a cast as wonderful as this film could have done a lot better by utilizing them to the fullest, but all we get is a film that's simply a waste of time for viewers. There's no flow in the way things play out, no chemistry between the characters, a messy sex scene, fake characters that only spoil the whole mood, and more. There is more downside to this film than there is any good, which only pushes forth our disappointment. Kinda Pregnant is the kind of film you'd rather skip than give a watch. Despite the wonderful cast, the overall picture is a mess, and something that's only fit to watch when there's nothing else to watch. 2 stars out of 5. Film Theater gave it a 1 out of 5, saying, mind-numbingly predictable as it is, you can tell from the moment Schumer's character begins wearing her fake bump that the truth will out at some point, as it often does in films centered around a big fat lie. They write, it isn't even how desperately unfunny it is, with plenty of physical gags that border on ridiculous and some set pieces where the biggest jokes are heavily telegraphed, in between scenes that rely on people acting overly weird and simply shouting every other line for comedic effect, as is the Happy Madison way. Rather, it's the fact that such a badly constructed script has come from Schumer herself, a far cry from her earlier and much funnier works 10 or so years ago. The Guardian gave it 2 out of 5. Their headline, Kind of Pregnant Review, Amy Schumer's Netflix comedy is kind of disappointing. They write, let me be clear. I'm always rooting for Amy Schumer, though sometimes she makes it difficult. When she's good, she's great. For the most part, that was on Inside Amy Schumer. Kind of Pregnant plays the hit Schumer's known for. Shameless physical comedy, frank discussion of bodies, brash refusal to play good girl, but feels stuck in the past, unable to generate new sparks. There's just not that much funny to be found here. And you'll probably see a review in your local newspaper. This is all sourced from the same place, was the Associated Press. This one came up a lot in my search in many local newspapers, again, sourcing the AP. They gave it 2.5 stars out of 4. And they wrote, and this is the best review I saw, again, 2.5 out of 4, Kind of Pregnant is kind of good. Now, I thought this was interesting. I hadn't realized this. Director Tyler Spindell is Adam Sandler's nephew. Welcome to the business, everybody. Everybody knows somebody. Sandler is a producer on the film that his nephew directs. I will come back to that point. Tyler doesn't do anything to advance the movie comedy, a languishing proposition in recent years with few big screen exceptions, but he crucially gives his performers plenty of space to be themselves. If Knocked Up captured the comedy of getting unexpectedly pregnant, Kind of Pregnant embodies the pain of wishing you were. Okay, so John, you obviously hate Amy Schumer and you're just here to beat up on Amy Schumer. I get it. I get why you think that. Give me a second here. My problem with Amy this week is how she went about promoting this. I just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the middle-aged dad in me. I didn't need to know that you were trading favors with a baseball player. Remember that? That's how we started promoting this. I don't need to know what you're planning with your husband to do the night before Valentine's Day, the Ozempic. It was just all like, look at me, 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 look at me. Well, we looked, and the movie's not good. I shared in the Facebook group back in 2012, we were doing a town hall at SiriusXM. I even found a still. You could see me in the background, lest you think I just make up stories on this podcast. So it was 2012. We were doing a town hall for Carol Burnett, and we needed someone to host it. And the idea was, okay, let's connect the generations. Who is today's Carol Burnett? And in 2012, we picked Amy Schumer. And it went really well. It did well in the press. I believe that's the only time I worked with Amy. She's fine. Definitely wasn't looking to be anybody's friend. I remember her asking if she could have an office to go into the zone so that she could get her head into the right space to do the broadcast. Not uncommon. Jim Brewer, who I spent a lot of time with over the years, I've explained, he would do that before a live show. So not crazy that Amy went off by herself. But I've had other comedians who were like just hanging and then you turn the light on and they just go. It's neither here nor there. So I didn't really spend a lot of time with her. Definitely didn't find her one of the most fun people I ever spent time around, again, because she was getting her head into the show. But as I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, I remembered we tried to hire her before that. I've lost track of the time. My number 2 at Sirius, it was this guy, Rory, who's fantastic. And he had gotten my ear that we should hire this up-and-coming New York comedian, Amy Schumer. And he convinced me this was a good idea, and I was on board with it. And we had agreed, if I remember correctly, I'm going to say a dollar amount here. I haven't said this, but, it's over a decade now. At this time, hey, bosses, I want to give Amy Schumer a once-a-week, 1-hour show. I need budget for it. Oh, really? Well, I'm not sure we have budget for it. How much is the dollar amount, John? $200. You see, back at the old place, we had our ears to the ground, right? We would do this. People would be at the clubs. We would go up to the festivals. We would talk to other comedians. We were always ahead of the curve with who was going to be next. And Amy was on the next list. So we wanted to give her a show. Now, would Amy have continued to do a show 15 years later for $200 a week? Of course not. But the idea was, let's ride this for now. And then at some point, she'll be like, hey, guys, I can't do this anymore. And we'll all move on. But at that time, that dollar amount made sense to me, to Rory, and to whoever Rory was talking about in her camp. The bosses wouldn't give me the $200. There's one boss in particular. I remember having a conversation about such things. And he one day asked me to see if Chris Rock could do a comedy special for free. For free. You want him to do it for free? Yeah. We'll help promote his career. We're going to help promote Chris Rock's career. He's going to just burn an hour of material for free. Now, as the years went by, you probably heard reports of how much Chris Rock was paid by Netflix. Let me see if I can get an actual number. A 2016 report in the Hollywood Reporter said Chris Rock did a $40 million deal with Netflix. But Chris Rock is supposed to do Raw Dog Comedy a favor for free. You know, we're going to promote his career, help Chris Rock's career. Oh, boy. So I'm $40 million short of what I'm going to need to pay Chris Rock. You think I can get $200 a week? $200 times 50 weeks a year, by the way, is $10,000. Assuming he does, I don't know, 40 shows. We're talking about $8,000 here, guys, for a company selling $13 subscriptions. But anyway, that show didn't happen. So lest you come away this week going, John just hates Amy Schumer. John tried to hire Amy Schumer. And that's your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you would like this program without commercial interruption, there's a link in the show notes that'll tell you how that works. And if you were discovering this on the YouTube 24/7 stream that I created, so there's just a loop and it's playing the most recent 2 weeks of the podcast and like some of the interviews I threw in, like Gianmarco Cerezi and Larry the Cable Guy and some other things I've done over the years. So it's just a loop. It's a nice, easy way for me to get extra earballs on the program, and I'm seeing that people are discovering it that way. So if you are discovering this show for the first time, it's an audio podcast. There is no video. It's not that the camera's off. There is no camera. I'm sitting in a basement. I have a USB microphone in my hand and a MacBook. That's the entire production budget for this show. But I appreciate you. I'll hope you check out the audio podcast wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.